I do think that we are all quite overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Now, the difference with somebody who presents with ADHD is that this isn't just a contextual issue. Like, this isn't something that you're just struggling with today. It's described as a developmental condition in that you've always had it. And I really love the movement that we're having now in the world of psychology, this more neuroaffirming, which we're looking at neurodivergence. So as opposed to a disorder, we're thinking that we're looking at brains being wired differently, which is much more validating and compassionate. So when we think about an ADHD brain under this umbrella of neurodivergence, or the autistic brain, or we have the epileptic brain is under that umbrella as well, they're wired differently. So they're driven by different things. So, and I find that really helpful for my ADHD community to recognize that the ADHD brain and to a large extent the autistic brain is driven by interest, by novelty, by stress, and by challenge. Now, that's different to the neurotypical brain that is driven by doing the right thing, or driven by a sense of belonging, or doing what's expected. The ADHD brain likes to be stimulated, which means that one of the problems we have when there's a lot going on is that the ADHDer will choose to do what's novel, what's new, what's interesting, what's challenging, what's stressful, versus what has to be done just because. Like your chores or your admin. So you have an ADHD who can, pull off a fantastic podcast, but they'll really struggle to do their taxes or organize the day-to-day pickups of the kids. So that's quite different. So in terms of functioning, we think of, the overwhelm of the day-to-day life that we have. Of course, it's hard to juggle lots of things. Our brain, we all have limits, but the ADHD brain is more than just struggling to juggle. Like, it will impact functioning. And I think what's really important is to recognize that the burnout piece, because that's what usually brings clients to see me, is when they feel this visceral burnout. Like the lady who came on our podcast, Michaela Thomas, she talks about having two states, meerkat and sloth. So when you're in the meerkat, you're all excited, you get easily distracted by the squirrel, everything is, sparkly, everything's exciting and sort of, you've got a bit of a skip and a buzz. But then you burn out and then you're like a sloth. And my clients will describe the state where they just cannot get up for anything, like nothing is worth it. And it's emotional because often it comes with lots of self-criticism. Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just do this small task? Everything feels unsurmountable. But it's also deeply physical. Like, they're exhausted. And that's because they've just had probably a period of hyperactivity and getting everything done. And they're exhausted by that. So it's kind of like a feast and a famine. And I think that's different to the overwhelm of day-to-day life.
So you mentioned that people with ADHD are driven by dopamine or stimulants or deadlines, whatever it is that gets them motivated. That to me seems like a chemical imbalance in the brain. So could you explain how that could be happening, or if it is something that can be explained?
I mean, I'm not a neuroscientist, but and so I won't pretend to be.
we did just have one on, so we'll get her in touch.
Get them to speak about that. But there is a dopamine hypothesis in that ADHD, because it's driven by interest, is actually driven by dopamine. And so what you'll see is the ADHD brain will mine for dopamine. So that hyperfocus that we see with the ADHDers is that they'll get really excited by something. And it could be anything. It could be, furniture painting, and they'll paint every piece of furniture. That has happened to me personally. In the house.
This sounds like a very real life example, Dr.
Yeah, it is, until there's nothing brown in the house. Yeah. And then I'm done.
Yeah.
And then I'll find something else that's sparkly and new and exciting, right? And that's what we call the dopamine hypothesis, because they mine the dopamine until there's nothing left. And then when there's nothing left, they can't understand why they did all that. Like, what was so interesting about this? Because there's no more excitement left. It's no longer novel or a challenge, and no longer of interest. So you're right. There is a dopamine. We talk about the dopamine mining, and it helps my clients to understand their behaviors. Like, why is it that I can find this so easy, but something else so hard? And that, once we have that understanding, there's a compassion that comes with it, which I think is so important. But also it helps us organize our day so that we keep the challenge and the novelty driving some of the behaviors that we find harder. So, for example, you can create, I have clients who time themselves doing the dishes.
Oh, that's quite interesting.
That would literally motivate me zero, but I can totally see how for the ADHD person this could be a fun game.
Yeah. It's like, how quickly can I do it today? Like creating a challenge in the things that are most difficult.
Yeah.
So it's like gamifying things that could be mundane, which will then give you something to feel excited by.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. It's like using what you know about the wiring of your brain
to your advantage.
To your advantage. Exactly.